Thanks for joining us today, and thanks for giving me this opportunity to introduce myself to you. My name is David Pfrimmer. I retired in 2016 from full-time work at then Waterloo Lutheran Seminary. These days I'm writing and doing some speaking engagements. I live in Kitchener with my wife. We have 2 lovely daughters and their partners and 4 delightful grandchildren, all of whom keep us very, very young. My main area of interest is in the field of ethics. Now, what do I mean by ethics? Broadly speaking, I would say ethics is about the search for the good life. But I would hasten to add that ethics is also autobiographical. It's not just about determining what's right or what's wrong. It is composing our life story based on struggling with difficult and important decisions about the things that matter most to us and matter to others as well. Taken together, these decisions and their outcomes are our life story. I was born in Montreal, in La Belle Provence. My parents moved to a small town in Connecticut when I was young, during the great brain drain of the 1950s. My father was an engineer and many professionals moved to the States at that time. It was a small C conservative New England town where there was not much to do. So I joined the Boy Sprouts, as we often joked, where I developed a lifelong love of canoeing, camping, and the great outdoors. In high school, I played soccer and was on the track team and involved in student politics. Growing up in this kind of an environment at this time, I learned the importance of personal ethics, the importance of how our personal values, the principles we hold dear, shape who we are and give us a sense of character, and how character matters in the world in which we live. Now, rest assured, I was no angel. In fact, years later at a high school reunion, I was given the award as the most unlikely profession. In 1969, I returned to Canada to study at Waterloo Lutheran University. There I earned a BA in economics. It was a turbulent time. Students were addressing many of the social issues, the war in Vietnam, the civil rights movement, the FLQ crisis in Quebec, and the ever-present Cold War. They were front and center for many of us during these days. As students, we also wanted to be part of the decision-making that took place on campus. Students pressed for representation on the university's Board of Governors, the Senate, and other committees. And eventually, I served as a student representative at the WLU Senate. During this time, I learned a great deal about what's called social ethics. How do the embedded systemic values and assumptions we hold cause injustice and lead to violence? Later, I would go on and I would do a Master of Arts degree in religious social ethics, doing an assessment of economic policies to address global hunger. The spirit of justice and social justice led me to seminary. The churches were leaders at that time on many justice, peace, and environmental issues. I was attracted to that and saw the churches as a place where I could make a difference, doing something that I believed in and that was important to do. Eventually, as a Lutheran pastor, I served parishes in Kingston, where I was involved in the federal prisons and the People's Food Commission. And later on, I went to New Hamburg, where we worked and established an interfaith counseling center. In 1983, I was appointed to our denomination's national office as the executive secretary. There, I worked with many ecumenical coalitions. Now they've formed an organization called Kairos. I worked with the Canadian Council of Churches and a wide range of faith groups, Muslims, Jewish community, Buddhists, Baha'i, and a whole host of others. These were heady years for me, and I learned a lot from my colleagues and I gained a rich appreciation of the importance of multi-faithism. In 1986, I became the director of the Lutheran Office for Public Policy. For over 20 years, I worked with a wide range of these ecumenical and multi-faith organizations at Queen's Park, in Ottawa, and at the United Nations. I helped establish the Institute for Christian Ethics, and I did some teaching at Waterloo Lutheran Seminary. With truly wonderful colleagues, I worked on issues of economic globalization, social and health policy, Canadian foreign policy, peace and disarmament, human rights, and Indigenous rights. I was extremely fortunate to have a ringside seat, maybe a little bit of a hand in some of the important moments in history, bringing the end of apartheid, the beginning of the corporate social responsibility movement in Canada, the inclusion of Indigenous rights in Canada's new constitution, opposing the free trade agreement. Well, you get the picture. There were a whole range of these kinds of issues that I was very fortunate to see up front and very closely. In 1995, I went back to school to Princeton Theological Seminary, and there I earned a Doctor of Ministry degree. Now, from my public policy work, the focus of my study at that time was on what was called public theology and the role of churches in the public political life. In 2005, I was appointed the principal dean of then Waterloo Lutheran Seminary. It was a time of transformation for the school, as you probably well know, when the seminary became Martin Luther University College. While I was there at the seminary, it gave me an opportunity to reflect on the many privileged moments from my advocacy years, the ways in which and the opportunities I had to accompany people and communities in moments of change and struggle. It was during this time I developed the idea of public ethics, and the Institute for Christian Ethics at WLS became the Center for Public Ethics at Luther today. Today, as the wheels seem to be coming off our social systems and many of our institutions, many seem to be increasingly dysfunctional and losing the confidence and trust of people. The pandemic has accelerated these changes and heightened people's anxieties and suspicions. During my advocacy years, I came to appreciate the importance of publics for recreating our society and many of our institutions. Now, what I mean by a public is something very specific. A public is a group of individuals who gather around a common cause, who share common values, and they join together in the process of pursuing social change and greater justice for people. When they seek the common good, I call this public ethics, and this is my current interest. While I like being where the social action is, the world of ideas is equally important for me, and it's an exciting and important adventure that matters. How we think about things ensues in how we act about things. The COVID-19 pandemic, growing inequality, many of its own contradictions, are symptoms that a capitalist economic system may be breaking down. There are what Janice Stein calls hinge moments when great change happens. In fact, the Protestant Reformation, or as some refer to it, the Protestant Revolution, was one of those. In the fall of 2020, I'll be teaching a course that asks this question: how will capitalism end? If you can't imagine how something will end, you can't imagine how something needs or should be. This course will explore the origins, the existential threats, and the possible alternatives to the way our economy works. What are the answers to this question? Well, truly, I can't tell you. I'm not sure myself. But I hope you'll join me, and hopefully together we can look at the issues that are arising and the challenges that face us and find out.